I'm Dana Perino, along with Judge Janine Pirro, Jessica Tarlov, Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City. This is The Five. Vice President Kamala Harris in the hot seat, finally forced to answer some tough questions. The presidential nominee getting a little riled up with Brett. Vice President Kamala Harris in the hot seat, finally forced to answer some tough questions. The presidential nominee getting a little riled up with Bret Baier in her first ever Fox News interview.
If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam Vice President.
You and I both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't.
If you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
You said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration, even before. Let's all be honest about that.
Bret Baier pressing Harris on the elephant in the room, or rather the one who got pushed out of the room. That would be President Biden.
So, you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas.
When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talk.
Record number of people watched last night, Jesse, over 7 million, and that was just on the television.
You know what she's really good at?
What?
Not taking any responsibility. She's actually excellent at that. If you wanted to watch someone for 25 minutes not take any responsibility, last night was amazing. She is a typical lawyer who enjoys arguing but doesn't have a point. She said nothing bad happened over the last 4 years, but nothing good happened either. She never mentioned one accomplishment over the last 4 years, not chips, not inflation reduction, nothing. And if you're Biden, you're watching this interview, you're like, okay, thank you. This was really bad. She did not look, Bill, calm down. That's not how things work. And creates this sort of connection with the interviewer. And she doesn't have the ability to, Bill, calm down. That's not how things work. And creates this sort of connection with the interviewer. And she doesn't have the ability to do that. She's ice cold. She's unlikable, and her arguments are incoherent. At one point, she said, Donald Trump has to take responsibility for everything that happens in his administration. She goes, but I don't have to take any responsibility for what happens in the Biden-Harris administration. Or she says, the border has always been broken, but it was secure when I was there, except during an election year when Trump broke it. You cannot follow it. It's all illogical. She said she never noticed anything bad about Joe Biden. She's the nominee because Biden was bad. If you look at the Democrat reaction to this, they don't seem that happy. But I wanted to bring something for Jessica.
A gift for me?
Trump has now taken the lead in every single battleground state and is now ahead in the betting markets bigger than he ever has been so far. I will leave you with that, Jessica.
Thank you.
Well, since you invoked her name, I got to go to her next. Jessica, I mean, the goal for Kamala Harris yesterday, what was it, and did she reach it?
So the goal was to not satisfy anyone sitting on this panel. Partisans, people who generally know how they're going to vote, have their preferences. If there are any undecideds left, and I'm getting skeptical that there are many of them with 19 days to go, 18 days to go, or whatever. And maybe it's just between Kamala and the couch or Trump and the couch. I think she did accomplish that goal because those people, if they're voting on immigration, I could guess how they're voting. If they're voting on reproductive freedom, I know how they're voting. Colleague who brought me a gift today about her looking presidential, I think she handled herself really well. And she looked like the prosecutor who has won a lot of elections in the past, statewide elections, and had a very successful career. I think that she did particularly well in prosecuting the case against Donald Trump's character. When she discussed the enemy within comments that he made on Maria Bartiromo's show and then struggled to clean up, or actually just refused to clean up when he was talking to Harris in the town hall. And clearly they have message tested unstable, unfit, lacks the competency to do the job and the character. And that's where she is leading by really sizable proportions. Tested unstable, unfit, lacks the competency to do the job and the character. And that's where she is leading by really sizable proportions. So 7 million people saw her last night. If even a fraction of them were looking to feel confident that she could do the job, I think they would walk away from that saying that she can.
Okay, and Judge, what did you make of it all?
When I watched her right in the beginning, she started pointing at Brett. She pointed at him throughout most of the interview. I found that very offensive. I thought that Brett did an excellent job of trying to get her to answer the questions. I think she was contentious. I think she made it clear that she has a short fuse. And I think even more important is the fact that her job yesterday in coming on Fox was to try to convince people to want to vote for her. There was nothing that she said that would make anyone want to vote for her because everything was about not what she's done to want to vote for her. There was nothing that she said that would make anyone want to vote for her because everything was about not what she's done, but how terrible Donald Trump is. And those people have already decided, with all due respect, they're not the undecideds. Okay, and she wasted an opportunity to convince people of that. And I have two specific points. When she was asked about the transgender, the law that required the government to pay for transgender surgeries, she was spineless. She was weak. We all know what she meant when she said, I'm going to follow the law. And she said, well, it was the law when Trump was there. Well, first of all, it's not a law. It's a regulation. Second of all, none of those surgeries occurred during the Trump administration. You know why, Kamala? Because he fought them and he fought the regulation.
But people got hormone therapy.
The first transgender surgery was during Kamala and Joe Biden's administration. Now, take responsibility, stand up for what you believe, and stop being weak. Second point, to say that Donald Trump is not fit is laughable when this is a woman who told the American people that Joe Biden was competent. She was a ability as far as I'm concerned. And I thought that she was very weak. And I thought that Brett did everything he could to restrain himself from a woman who wasn't interested in conversing.
One of the ways to ask that, and this just comes to me, and I'll turn it over to you, Greg, for whatever you want to say with your great notes, but she was, one of the ways to ask the question of when did you know he was mentally fit could have been, did you feel comfortable asking people for their hard-earned money to donate to a campaign that when you knew he wasn't capable of serving the next 4 years? And then see how she would answer. I don't know how she would answer.
No. When Brett said, when did you
capable of serving the next 4 years? And then see how she would answer. I don't know how she would answer.
No. When Brett said, when did you first notice Joe Biden's mental decline? She said, Joe Biden isn't on the ballot. Why is he not on the ballot?
Right.
Yeah.
Because of his mental decline. That's like answering, when did you know Epstein was a pedophile? Oh, on my fourth trip. Let me be very clear. She was a disaster. It was so bad, Doug Emhoff smashed his nanny cam. She lost her cool because she didn't expect the thing that none of the reporters have done. which is ask follow-up questions. She should have seen this coming. Stevie Wonder should have seen this coming, that Bret Baier was going to ask follow-up questions. She ended up with the look and the tone of a DMV clerk who wants to take her break, but you're waiting for her. And so she's just like, I'm not going to help that person. We have waited 3.5 years for somebody to say, no, we don't know what you're talking about. Finally, it happened. We have waited 3.5 years for somebody to say, no, we don't know what you're talking about. Finally, it happened. Oh, she was unprepared. She has no excuse for that. Right. She's lazy. There's a reason why she's in the Witless protection program, because if this were a fight, she was unprepared. She has no excuse for that. Right. She's lazy. There's a reason why she's in the Witless protection program, because if this were a fight, most people would accuse her of throwing it. Seriously, how could you be that bad? How could you be that bad? And then the criticism that Baier interrupted her, he did what was given him. They created the scenario where he had limited time. She showed up late. They rushed her out of there. She did everything she could to eat up the clock. Under those restrictions, he knew that maybe he could get 3 or 4 answers out of her. He's like, you know what he is? He's like, when you're on the phone with your lawyer and he's charging you every 15 minutes, like every 15 minutes, it goes to another higher charge. Yeah. So he starts asking you about your kids. Yeah. He starts running the clock out. Joe must have been home laughing his ass off, high-fiving the visiting angels. He probably poured out a bottle of Ensure for his homie who just got murdered.
We got a lot more to come. Up next, former President Trump taking his MAGA message to Hispanic voters. We'll be right back.
Donald Trump taking his MAGA message to Hispanic voters at a Univision town hall, promising to tackle high prices and inflation and making clear who's to blame for the border crisis.
4 years ago, you had no inflation. Now you have record-setting inflation. When they came in, they spent and they also blew my energy policies up. We're going to bring your energy costs down, and with your energy costs, everything is going to come down. We're going to also make jobs available so you can afford, literally, much easier. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. The problem we have is we had people coming in under my administration, and they were coming in legally. They were coming in through a system that we had, which was great. We want workers, and we want them to come in, but they have to come in legally. They have to love our country. They have to love you, love our people. The problem with this administration is they've totally lost control.
You know, Judge, if you played the audio of Trump, so you didn't know where he was speaking, 4 different town halls, you wouldn't know what to the women's group, the way he would speak to. He didn't sugarcoat anything. I wish the Democrats would see that as a plus and not a minus.
That is such a brilliant question.
Thank you.
Oh, you're
it really
so brilliant, Greg.
Yes, you're wonderful. Okay, that's enough. Now, let me tell you what I think.
Okay.
I think that the reason that we're seeing this transfer of Hispanics
so brilliant, Greg.
Yes, you're wonderful. Okay, that's enough. Now, let me tell you what I think.
Okay.
I think that the reason that we're seeing this transfer of Hispanics from the Democrat Party to the Republican Party, it reflects a bunch of things. I think Hispanics are primarily here, most of them, because they want jobs. They are demographically a huge Christian demographic. Okay, they are not into children being introduced to, sexual and gender identity politics through books in school that they say we want to ban, but we just don't think that they're appropriate. And they're not into men beating women in women's sports. Okay, so they are conservative, they are religious by nature. And the people coming to America, the Hispanics, are coming to escape some of the gangs and some of the violence. And all of a sudden, we're starting to see MS-13, Tren de Aragua, and other gangs. And in New York City, 95% of the crime, or 75%, is being committed by illegals. So the legal Hispanics are invested in this country like most ordinary people. And they have assimilated in a way where they just want to be successful, and they're turning from the Dems, and they're the working class. Now, what's interesting is that the paycheck to paycheck, 39% of Hispanics are paycheck to paycheck, 35% of blacks, 33% of whites. That's all the working class. They're impacted by the economy, and that's why Trump is talking to them about the economy.
You know, Jessica, I do think that the move of Hispanics, from my perspective, is mainly men. But what about the Hispanics? What about the female?
Well, they looked pretty annoyed, actually. Did you see that great?
Is that a normal face for most women?
Yes, actually.
That
That's
should
pretty much-
go
you
in
nailed
an
it.
ad. Ladies, I'm
Go
talking
for
to
it.
you.
I'm not running.
Your resting bee face is what I'm after.
No, annoying
No,
face.
there was. We all know what you meant. So there's this great shot of these three Latinas sitting in the back row as Trump is talking, and they're like, this is the worst thing I have ever heard. And the reason that they felt
So
that
you're
way,
a mind reader?
Yeah, it took the words out of my mouth.
No, I'm guessing. Please, if you're watching this, reach out to me and tell me exactly what you were thinking. But I know it wasn't good. So I want to push back on
Okay,
something
Creston.
that Trump never speaks to an audience like he knows who's there, identity-wise, because we know that when he speaks to Jewish people, he knows exactly who he's talking to. I would also say that this was one of his better fact-free bonanzas. And we showed part of this. You like that?
That's good.
Bonanza? Thank you.
Wait, can I go
So,
back? I don't believe. What? When you're saying that he knows what he's talking to the Jewish people,
When he says, if you don't vote for me, this is going to be your fault.
That's
Israel will
specifically.
fall. That's to Jews. And he says, I know what
But that's
Jews are
specifically
after.
about Jewish support.
But
It's a
that's what
lousy
this is
example,
like.
Jessica.
No, it's not. It's a great
I'm
example.
trying to make it better.
You're not. You're actually trying to eat up my time, and I'm going to keep going.
I showed up on
Okay.
time, unlike your candidate.
So all right. We showed a little bit of his response to a man named Jorge Velasquez, who has picked strawberries and cut broccoli for his career. And he asked Trump, what are you going to do when you deport all these people who do the hard jobs? Because we know that these are jobs that Americans don't see for these people. And the clip that, at least in liberal world, went viral from all of this was from this 56-year-old Latino construction worker, Ramiro Gonzalez. He says, I was a registered Republican. Now he's not registered anymore, that he was disturbed by the events of January 6th and how Donald Trump didn't care about it all, the so what of it, and asked him if he would apologize for it, and also, why aren't the people who worked for you supporting you? And Donald Trump, who can know what of it, and asked him if he would apologize for it, and also, why aren't the people who worked for you supporting you? And Donald Trump, who can never give a gracious answer in any way, immediately jumps down his throat saying, I don't agree with Mike Pence. He should have certified the election. He claims 97% of the people who worked for him still like him. So maybe that number is accurate, but everyone in a top job doesn't. He calls January 6th now a day of love. We should move on from January 6th to this was a day of love. And what I found perhaps the most interesting was that he kept saying we to encompass him and the insurrectionists. So now he's on that team. This
They're
is
not
someone who calls
insurrectionists.
the
But go ahead.
tourists, the tourists with zip ties. He says we, and he's now called them hostages, which is a very strange.
Keep playing the Jan 6 card.
Okay, I will. But this came from someone who had supported him. This isn't about Jessica Tarlov hates Donald Trump.
It's been 12 years of a Democrat president out of 16, but it's Trump.
We have to have him come here and pick our crops, right, Jessica? They got to pick our
Trump?
crops.
Is he gonna pick
They
crops?
got to pick our crops. They got to break into the country and pick crops for us, Jessica? That's your argument? By the way,
I'm
they're guest
repeating what he
workers.
said.
They have work permits, most of them. They're seasonal workers. You could do it legally, all right? Also, great rebranding by Trump. Day of love.
Yeah.
I just think you got to give him credit for
You
that.
guys are-
Just for the attempt.
You're going with Day of Love.
Yeah, it's like your summer of love in 2020
Jessica.
when they burnt down the
Good
city.
point.
I just want to know what Kamala Harris is promising Hispanics, because so far she's promised blacks welfare and weed. She's promised college kids loan bailouts. She's promised women abortion. She's promised white dudes. Well, I guess we just get to be called real men, patronizingly.
Discount on nannies.
Sure. She's promising illegals free sex changes, hotel rooms, amnesty. She hasn't promised real men, patronizingly.
Discount on nannies.
Sure. She's promising illegals free sex changes, hotel rooms, amnesty. She hasn't promised anything to Hispanic Americans. Now, why is that? because they're hard workers and they keep their nose clean.
That's right.
Usually what Kamala Harris does is she punishes going to be. Trump is promising the American dream and is not going to redistribute your money to other people based on skin color and victimhood. He's just going to give everybody a fair shake.
Yeah, you know, Dana, go back to what I said before. They've had 12 years of the White House out of 16. And out of the 16, there was a certain kind of
shake.
Yeah, you know, Dana, go back to what I said before. They've had 12 years of the White House out of 16. And out of the 16, there was a certain kind of break for 4 years that was better. Yeah. How can they continue? I mean, he has actual solutions for the border. They don't.
Yeah, they're running out of.
He did run that clip.
They did. We have to apologize to the producers right now.
My
Thank
fault.
you. And Brett Baird did say that, and we ran it. We just missed it.
Yeah,
because we're not really paying attention. Anyway, one of the biggest moments of the night was when a woman got up and said her grocery prices are up literally double than it was 3 years ago, and they're still going up. So she is embodying what most people say. And got up and said her grocery prices are up literally double than it was 3 years ago, and they're still going up. So she is embodying what most people say they care about, which is the top issue for Latino voters is the economy as it is across the board. Just wanted to add one other thing. Saw these numbers today about voter registration in North Carolina. Hispanic voter registration has increased by 79,000 in North Carolina since 2020. Black voter registration's down 2,700, by 2,700. Democrats decreased, Republicans increased. There are a bunch of unaffiliated as well, but 93 out of the 100 counties have more registered Republicans than 4 years ago in a state that has many more Hispanics than in 2020.
Well, you guys definitely need to win North Carolina, so.
Great anecdote.
Yeah.
It is.
You're welcome.
We always knew it was bogus, but now the FBI is driving a stake right through the Democrats' face is down. The Bureau quietly updating its data to show a big jump in violence under the Biden-Harris administration. Let's break it down. In 2022, the FBI said violent crime rates decreased by 2.1%. But now the feds are adjusting that number to show an increase of 4.5%. So when does Trump get his apology from David Muir, who ever so smugly fact-checked him during ABC's debate last month?
Crime here is up
in this country, but Vice
excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud.
So, Dana, did the FBI acknowledge this change at all, or was this one of the things like
No,
they do
they
on a
did.
Friday?
No, they didn't actually, because that's how you know about it on a Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
And going into Thursday. So
Got me.
Yeah, the jobs number, it's like the jobs numbers, right?
Yeah.
Like there's these revisions and they come through. The thing is, unfortunately for Kamala Harris and Biden, these came through right before 19 days to go when people are starting to pay attention. Like when I pay attention just to the playoffs in baseball. The thing is, unfortunately for Kamala Harris and Biden, these came through right before 19 days to go when people are starting to pay attention. Like when I pay attention just to the playoffs in baseball, kind
too.
of. I mean, I know that the Dodgers beat the Mets 8-0. That's all I know. The other thing is, so I watched that network a lot, ABC. And I remember this past year, there was one night with something terrible had happened crime-wise. And for a week, they never mentioned it at all. And it was huge news. And I was thinking about even with Kamala Harris last night, if you had never watched Fox News, and that last night was the first night that you tuned in in order to watch Kamala Harris, and they were talking about immigration, and that was the first time you heard that there were 3, 5, 6, 7 million people that came into the country in the first 3.5 years of the Biden administration, you would have no idea because no one else covered it. Remember Bill Maloogian? He'd be down there by himself. Griff Jenkins, any other reporters there? Nope, nowhere to be found. It was the story of their lifetime, and they decided to give it a pass. So these numbers are undercutting their message, I would say.
All right, so Greg, if Trump loses, we can point to this and say they rigged it.
I think so. Absolutely.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
won't
Summer
have
of
to.
joy. Remember, the real crime was telling people that the crime that they experienced with their own ears and eyes, victims, that it was all in their head. Began with the riots when they called them mostly peaceful, and then CNN mocked actual reports of violence. I remember Don Lemon saying, hey, we went out to dinner. It was a great night in New York. There's no crime. And then, of course, you got David Muir and his hair. Then CNN 2 days ago, a guest brought up the Ferguson effect, where police retreat from policing out of fear of retribution, which is real, and then it became the Floyd effect.
System that we had.
The host acted like it didn't exist, and Abby Phillip, the host, actually wrote an article about it for the Washington Post. So crime deniers, you could argue, are worse than the criminals themselves because they enable the flourishing of the criminality because they themselves are safe. The young woman on the subway, the young mother on the subway, that's all in your head. While the people at CNN and MSNBC and at the DOJ, they get chauffeured to and from Pilates and Whole Foods, probably by an off-duty cop, a cop they tried to defund. But my bigger message here is this crime lie shows you how politics has an opportunity cost for every arena of life that it invades. And here the cost is human life. There was a time, I'm sure there was a time, when crime wasn't a political issue, when everybody agreed that it was bad. It was like, who would be on the side of the criminals? We know. But then somewhere along the line, something happened, a movement, a social justice movement that redefined crime as a necessity born of injustice. They're just doing it for food, right? AOC. Crime becomes worse than the crime itself, which is what they did with illegal immigration. It's what they do with abortion. It's what they do with sexual perversion. If you try to tackle something that's bad, like abortion, we all know it's bad. Remember the original the slogan, safe, legal, and rare? Why would you say that if it was good?
Yeah, so when Trump wants to fight crime, the Democrats want to fight for crime, Jessica. Why must you be so ridiculous?
Born this way, as Lady Gaga would say.
You're wearing a Lady Gaga shirt. I like that.
What?
Look, 2 compliments, 2 shows in a row.
Well,
What is happening?
You gave
here?
me that hideous gift of the Real Clear Politics average in the battlegrounds, though.
Frame it.
Okay, so time to play my favorite game. You cherry picked. Okay, so what you didn't mention is that there was a downward revision in the level of violent crime in 2021 that was actually a bigger ratio than the upward revision in 2022. And 2021 and 2023 are actually lowest crime rates, violent crime rates that we've seen in decades.
Right.
I would also note that the homicide rate and 2021 and 2023 are actually lowest crime rates, violent crime rates that we've seen in decades.
Right.
I would also note that the homicide rate, which is pretty important, right? People getting murdered,
Right.
that's unambiguously down, and you can check CDC stats against that as well. So David Muir has no apologies to give about
yes,
this.
he does. Because still,
he doesn't.
No, because
But he
still the
said
underlying
it's
issue of the
overall
FBI
down.
stats
Can I
is that they
speak on
didn't
this?
include.
No,
they
that's
didn't
not
include
true.
major cities. Yes, it is.
Too. The violent crime rate was up 4.5% when you said it was down 2.2%, for instance. Then maybe we could have a discussion. But you are talking about an overall trend too. The violent crime rate was up 4.5% when you said it was down 2.2%, for instance. Then maybe we could have a discussion. But you are talking about an overall trend.
Please.
Okay,
I insist.
Jessica, I thought you were calling me Jessica.
No, I would never.
On
No.
9/11,
He loves you.
on this show, I said that David Muir was wrong when he took.
Please.
Okay,
I insist.
Jessica, I thought you were calling me Jessica.
No, I would never.
On
No.
9/11,
He loves you.
on this show, I said that David Muir was wrong when he told Donald Trump that crime was down. And what is so stunning is that ABC is this time-honored, long-revered news station. It's not. There he didn't respond. Los Angeles didn't respond. Blue cities, I might add. And 1/3 of the police departments in this country did not respond to the FBI request. Ergo, he didn't respond. Los Angeles didn't respond. Blue cities, I might add. And 1/3 of the police departments in this country did not respond to the FBI request. Ergo, there was no clear reporting by the FBI and David Muir. Okay, but they used it as a political point to trash. He had 800,000 new jobs. No, you didn't. That was wrong, too. And inflation? Oh, no, it's better than you think it is. They were wrong about that, too. But here's the bottom line. He had 800,000 new jobs. No, you didn't. That was wrong, too. And inflation? Oh, no, it's better than you think it is. They were wrong about that, too. But here's the bottom line. They used it in the 2022 election. Do you remember the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, coming and saying, crime is a perception. It's not real. Baloney. You can't walk outside without worrying that someone is either going to shoot you or mug you or take your pocketbook. And we told you, and we brought you the stats. And the problem is top, and whether it's intel and the investigations, that domestic terrorists are parents and all this nonsense. The left lies for a political agenda. Top, and whether it's intel and the investigations, that domestic terrorists are parents and all this nonsense. The left lies for a political agenda.
Fears Donald Trump will drone strike The View.
The lunatics in the liberal media using the public airwaves as their therapists as they freak out over a second Trump term. And Joy Behar is freaked about scenes of the military conducting drone strikes on The View.
So if you say he's going to be dictator on day one, he wants to punish with the air forces, whatever we have, the armed forces. He wants to punish people who disagree with him, like people like us.
And MSNBC is basically accusing Donald Trump of being on drugs. Okay, Jesse. Do these people, are they serious, Jesse?
They are
Okay, Jesse. Do these people, are they serious, Jesse?
They are if he is elected. They will, if he does anything with his executive power, fires, deregulates, anything that any president has done, they are going to call him King Trump and that he needs to be stopped by any means necessary. Judge, there's going to be protests. There's going to be calls for the military to take action. He's not going to be able to do his job. He's going to prosecute someone or he's going to fire someone and they're going to say, this guy is a genocidal dictator who is destroying the Constitution and he needs to be stripped of all power immediately before he does too much damage. It's only just getting started, their hysteria.
You know, Dana, they say they're not even going to wear costumes for Halloween because this is such a dark period in time. And yet they're supporting the Joy candidate.
Their hysteria.
You know, Dana, they say they're not even going to wear costumes for Halloween because this is such a dark period in time. And yet they're supporting the Joy candidate.
I'm telling you, they could save a lot of money.
The fabric industry is going to take a hit.
Do they really need a costume?
Oh,
Dana.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? I don't even know. This reminds me of 2022, right? So they ran out of things to say, so they just started saying, they put out the bat signal. You know, I've heard the bat signal. Just say he's deranged and unstable, and he's going to use the military against people. Just say that, and then they're all like, yes, absolutely, marching on, and they will do that. And I think that what the Trump team has done a little bit, but you could see it be a little bit more effective if they reminded everyone. Remember the school board meetings? Mm-hmm. Remember the Justice Department telling the FBI to go look at the school board meeting and the parents? Remember the dad who got arrested in Virginia for trying to protect his daughter who was raped by a guy who was allowed to use the girls' bathroom? Remember that? And then they tried to deny it. Like, talk about the government being used against people.
Yep. Very good, Greg. What do you want to say to that?
Oh, where do I start? I love CNN because it's been really hard for me. You know, since Don Lemon's gone, Chris Cuomo's gone, Stelter was gone for a while, but he's back and fatter than ever. But they knew I needed someone new. They're going, Gutfeld is suffering. Let's bring on this nonsensical elitist crone called Joanna Coles. Maybe he's microdosing. She might have come from the original cast of Absolutely Fabulous. She drips with pretentious banality. She is as vapid as a royal gossip and as deep as a contact lens. I adore her. She looks about as healthy as David Bowie is right now. I also... there's nothing's going to happen to The View. The View, you know, when I was a kid, when I had a paper route, The View was the crazy house on your paper route that you always go by, and it's like it's better.
Real quick.
Yeah, you throw the paper really quick, and you just keep going. No one's following you, but still, you're glad they're there because it's just exciting. They're always in the news.
Had a paper route?
I had multiple paper routes.
What time did you get up?
I did afternoon paper routes. I hated morning routes. Only in the afternoon. The evening paper.
Isn't that old news?
Yeah, well, not
Evening
then.
paper.
It was the
Afternoon.
old news in the afternoon. All right, Jessica, defend them.
No, thank you. I don't know. I've said before, I feel lucky to be here all the time, but definitely if he wins, you guys have to protect me. The double standard about Trump's behavior versus what I had to hear about Joe Biden is astonishing. If Biden had stood on stage swaying to Ave Maria and the Village People for 39 minutes about Nancy Pelosi, or the Pelosi's in general, about Adam Schiff when he's talking about the enemy within, look at what Mark Esper said. He wanted to shoot protesters in the legs. The man, maybe
Really?
it's just really? Yeah, really.
Did he? We had 4 years of this guy. Did he do any of this? Come on. What Jeez, please. Up next. Politics is now
This fan, really? Yeah, really.
Did he? We had 4 years of this guy. Did he do any of this? Come on. What Jeez, please. Up next. Politics is now.
And they always say, but when it comes down to changing a tire, it's always going to be a Republican.
Yep.
So if you're a dude, you want to date, get exercise, work hard, be adventurous, take risks, do interesting things, do more, say less. It'll save you a lot of time.
Or in your case, just the silent type.
Yes.
Jesse, can you change a car tire?
I have a guy for that. But Jessica, men, when they're dating, we don't really care what the woman's politics are.
Exactly.
If she's liberal, it's amusing.
Yes.
Right? And then if she's conservative, that's cool too. But when she gets married to you, she'll probably start becoming a conservative. Now, if you go the other way, a guy is never going to start out as a conservative, start dating a liberal girl, and then become liberal. That's asinine. I challenge you to find one example where that's happened.
Dana, save him.
I would say, well, I think he's probably wrong on that. I would say
She said probably.
I have the don't ask, don't tell policy. I don't ask people who they're voting for. I don't tell people who I'm voting for. Just don't. Who cares? Just
I feel like everyone must
live your
tell
life.
you, though.
I thought that meant you only date
Judge,
gay
do
dudes.
people know who you're voting for?
Do people know I'm voting for? What do you think? No, but I think what this proves is that Republicans are more tolerant.
Yes, we
Yep,
are.
there you go.
The left.
What a beautiful people you
We'll
are.
bang anything.
One more thing
Indeed.
is up next.
20 đôi đồng sợi màu đen. Đôi xương sợi màu trắng. Hai mũi đơn bằng sợi màu trắng. Sử dụng kéo cắt sợi màu đen. Đôi xương sợi màu đỏ. Móc một mũi đơn bằng sợi màu đỏ. Đôi xương sợi màu xanh. Hai mũi cuối cùng. Móc hai mũi đơn bằng sợi màu xanh. Hàng tiếp theo. Một mũi đơn bằng sợi màu xanh. Đôi xương sợi màu đỏ. Móc hai mũi đơn bằng sợi màu đỏ. Đôi xương sợi màu trắng. Móc hai mũi đơn bằng sợi màu trắng. Đôi xương sợi màu đỏ. 3 mũi đơn lồng sợi màu đỏ. Đầu xương sợi màu trắng. Hai mũi đơn lồng sợi màu trắng. Đầu xương sợi màu đỏ. Hai mũi đơn lồng sợi màu đỏ. Cắt bỏ sợi trắng. Tiếp tục đổi sợi màu xanh. 20 cùm, móc 2 mũi đơn sợi màu xanh. Hàng tiếp theo, 2 mũi đơn bằng sợi màu xám. Đổi xương sợi màu đỏ.